Hello everyone, welcome back. This is part of a series that I'm doing on AK-47s, and in this video I'm going to be talking about chambering a round into the AK-47. Okay, so basically I'm using the AR-15 as a reference point because most of us are more familiar with AR-15s, and this video isn't about which is better or easier or any of that stuff. It's about knowing the differences, and basically, if you normally use an AR-15, if you go to use an AK-47, what do you have to do different? What do you have to be aware of? And I think they're both great rifles. They're both combat-proven rifles, and both of them can be found, all over the United States. So that's why we need to be good with both of them. Okay. So let's talk about chambering a round into an AR-15. We're going to use that as our starting point, as a reference. And usually when we put when we go to put around the AR-15, we're going to normally lock it back, okay? So first we lock it back, then we take our magazine, insert it, close the bolt, gun on safe, okay? And as you can see, this is pretty easy, okay? It's a very easy process. By locking the bolt open, what we're doing is because remember there's a round in there, right? There's a round in each of these magazines. If you leave that bolt closed, what happens is when you go to chamber that round, that top round has to compress into the spring a little bit. Okay, so basically, if your bolt is closed and you're trying to get this in there, it's going to put a little, it's going to put more pressure on the spring. And that's going to make it a little bit more work. Okay, so we'll get this round out. Okay, so that's the way we normally chamber that round. And with the AR-15, it's pretty easy. I mean, even doing once you get it in there, even if you want to do the tactical reloads, that's easy stuff. Okay, but let's say and also when we're shooting, right? Let's say we're going bang bang bang. After we fire that last round, the bolt is going to basically lock open on that last round. So again, we have a situation where the bolt's locked open. We take the next one, we put it in, hit that button to release the bolt, and basically get a round in the chamber. Okay. So regardless of whether we're doing an initial load or if we're reloading, okay, because we just emptied out the magazine, the bolt is normally going to lock open on us. Okay. Now, if it doesn't lock open, right? So let's say we're shooting, okay, gun goes empty, and for whatever reason the bolt does not lock back. Couple of ways to deal with that, and one you can get. So here we put that one in, right? One way is to basically take your hand over here, because your hands are, the gun's already in this position. You take the palm here, you push that against that lock that's on your charging handle, bring that back, and just let it go. And that's going to put the round in the chamber. Okay, so that's one way. That's one way to do it. Especially if you have gloves on, that's pretty comfortable. Another way is to simply, use that one. Let me use this one. Put that one in. You can always use your two fingers. Pull that back. Get the round in that way. Okay. So these are all the ways that we typically get a round into the chamber of our AR-15. Okay, so let's compare that now to the AK-47 and see what we need to do differently. Okay, with the AK-47, the main difference is that the bolt does not lock back on an empty round. Okay, and even if you're using one of these, if I can find one of these Serbian ones. Nope, that's not one. Here's a Serbian one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get these rounds out so I can demonstrate. Even if you have a Serbian one, like this one, right? And so you got that magazine in. Let's say you fire, let's say you fire that last round, okay? The bolt is going to lock open. However, when you go to take the magazine out, it's going to close on you. Okay, so even if you have one of these Serbian magazines that lock open on the last round, you're always working with a bolt that is closed. Okay, and the significance of that is that when you go to put the magazine in, that's loaded. There you go. That's loaded. when you go to put the magazine in, first you have to anchor to the right point, right? Because there's a hook in front of the magazine here. You got to anchor that to the right point, so you got to find that. And usually I use these rivets here as a point of reference. And then as you rock it in, basically the top round here is going to push against the top of the bolt, and that needs to get pushed in a little bit in order for the magazine to go in. So there's two things that are going on there. And one, we got to find that hook and then rock it in, and as we rock it in, it's pushing against that. Okay. Now from this position here, once we get it in there, how do we chamber around? The conventional way that I will see most AK operators use is basically they'll come over the gun, pull it back, and let it go that way. Okay, so that's the conventional way that I will usually see most of the AK guys use. Let's get that out. Okay. Sometimes you get lucky and it does lock back, but that's just it sticking a little bit. It will never stick when you're actually shooting it. It will only stick if you kind of hold it back and you go a little slow with that. Sometimes it'll stick. Sometimes that can be an advantage, but let's assume that the bolt's not going to stick, because a lot of times you can't get it to do that consistently. So the other way that people will usually charge this is, once they get that round in, they'll point the gun down, they'll use the palm here, come back, and they'll get the round in that way, okay? And then safety would go on from there. So that's the other way that, let's take this on. That's the other way that people would charge it. So basically one way is like that, the other way is like that. Now, in all cases, this requires two actions, okay? Basically, we gotta get this magazine's empty. We gotta get that magazine in there, okay? All right, once the magazine is in there, then we have to charge it, okay? And the difference is, again, with the AR-15 is that once you got the bolt in, once the magazine goes in, you're pretty much hitting a small button and the round goes into the chamber. Here you have to make two large movements, okay? You gotta get that magazine in, okay, and then you either gotta come over the top or come underneath and charge it. So there's a little bit more time involved there. There's a little bit more effort. Now, another way that I have seen used, I've heard of being used in the Middle East, is what they'll do is they'll brace the gun against themselves here. Okay, let's say the magazine's out. Okay, they'll brace the gun against themselves like that. They'll get the magazine in that way, okay, and then they'll release it, okay. So that kind of saves a step, in the sense that, first of all, it does two things. Number one is, by keeping the bolt open, the magazine is going to go in a little bit easier, okay, because that spring is no longer compressing against the bolt as it goes in. So basically, you just pull it back. Okay, basically, I'm kind of using my thumb here against the top of the rail here. But basically, you can also, if you're behind cover, you can use your cover to support the muzzle of the gun. And basically just rock it in, and then basically you release it. And that I can definitely see that as a time saver. Okay, so that's another option that you guys can consider. Okay. Realistically speaking, most of the time when I'm just showing people how to use the gun, when I'm doing like marksmanship, most of the time I do it the lazy way. I'll hold the gun here, I'll keep that in the safe direction, I'll use my right hand, I'll rock that in, rock that in, and I'll do that. Okay, so I guess that's also a method that works. So in any case, these are the differences, and that's all I'm doing here is I'm take this off. I'm pointing out the differences between the AR-15 and the AK-47, so that you're aware of the two, and you're aware of how that charges, right? How you get a round into the chamber with that versus how you get a round into the chamber with this. They're both excellent combat rifles, and I think everybody should own at least one of each, if not 5 or 10 of each. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.